My stepsister abused me for years, then tried to guilt me into giving her a kidney. I refused, and my lawyer exposed her selfish lies to everyone. I'm a 32-year-old man who grew up in a blended family that never really blended. My father remarried when I was 11, and suddenly I had a new stepsister who was about my age. My father hoped we'd become tight-knit siblings, sharing jokes, watching TV together. But it never worked out like that. From day one, my stepsister treated me like I was invading her territory. She'd snap at me over little things, calling me names whenever my father and her mother weren't around. At first, I tried to believe maybe she just needed time to adjust. As the years passed, our hostility turned into open ridicule, making my teens miserable. She'd do petty stuff, hide my homework, lie to her parents about me, claim I'd broken something when it was clearly her fault. If I complained, she'd flash an innocent smile, and I'd get scolded for picking on her. She seemed to relish any chance to get me in trouble. Once, she told my father I'd stolen money from her piggy bank, complete fiction. He lectured me for an hour while she stood behind him, smirking. It was classic manipulation. Over time, I learned to keep my head down, avoid her as much as possible, and dream of the day I could move out. Eventually, I did move out, forging my own path and leaving that toxic dynamic behind. I moved to a small city apartment, found a stable job, and built a calmer life. My father and her mother lived out of state now, but I'd see them on holidays. My stepsister sometimes popped up, always complaining about her finances or blaming others for her troubles. I just nod politely, then excuse myself. She had no real interest in me, only in the drama she could stir. Life carried on like that, distant but tolerable, until a couple months ago, when I got a call from my father. He sounded flustered, talking about how my stepsister had a serious health crisis, a failing kidney. The doctors were recommending a transplant. My father's voice wobbled, as though he expected me to react with heartbreak. But all I felt was a mild shock, coupled with ambivalence. She'd tormented me for years. Would I jump at the chance to be her donor? Probably not. Still, I told him I was sorry she was in pain. Then he asked me to consider getting tested as a potential match. My gut twisted. The idea of donating an organ to the person who abused me for half my life felt surreal. He said, "We're asking everyone in the family." But I knew who everyone meant me. Her mother had some health issues. My father was older, and my stepsister's relatives apparently had different blood types or other disqualifications. She had no close friend who'd volunteer, not that I was surprised. So they pinned hopes on me, the stepbrother she tormented. I didn't immediately say no. I told him I'd think about it. My father pleaded, "She's still family." I ended the call feeling uneasy. Then my stepsister herself contacted me, flooding me with guilt-laden texts. "I know we had issues, but please, you can't let me die," she wrote. "Don't be cruel. Show you're bigger than the past." Part of me almost softened. Nobody deserved to die from kidney failure, after all. But my memory flashed to how she'd bullied me for years, how she never once apologized. Now, she wanted my vital organ. The irony stung. I decided to get tested quietly, just to see if we even matched. I told no one. If I wasn't a match, that ended the question. If I was, well, I crossed that bridge then. A week later, the results came back. I was indeed a match. When my stepsister found out, not from me, my father told her, believing I'd share the news. She bombarded me with calls, demanding I proceed. No humility, no contrition, just a sense of entitlement. "When are we scheduling the operation?" As if I'd automatically sign my body over. My father also pressured me, though more gently, saying, "Please, do the right thing." Sitting on my couch, phone in hand, I stared at her texts. She didn't ask me how I felt about the procedure, nor did she attempt any heartfelt apology for her past abuse. Instead, she typed messages like, "Better do it soon. My time's running out, and you can't say no. Family helps each other." The lack of empathy in her tone sank in. She wasn't requesting help. She was commanding it, manipulating me with her precarious health as leverage. I felt my emotions churn, guilt, anger, confusion. If I refused, I'd be labeled heartless, maybe even demonized by extended relatives. But my conscience told me it wasn't just about petty revenge. This was about self-preservation. I'd be risking my body for someone who'd never shown me genuine kindness. Donations are serious matters, not an act forced by emotional blackmail. I recalled how she'd sabotage me academically in high school, how she'd lie about me skipping chores, how she called me worthless behind my father's back. Did that person deserve my kidney? I confided in a friend who said, kidney donation is no small thing. She'd better show real remorse and gratitude, or it's not worth risking your health. That resonated. I decided to see if she was capable of genuine regret. So I texted her, calmly pointing out that we had unresolved issues, that I needed an apology or at least an acknowledgement of how she treated me. Her response was to lash out. She barked that she wouldn't beg forgiveness, that I'd better step up. She twisted it into, if you hold grudges, you're the toxic one. My jaw tightened reading those words. Anger flared, but I forced myself to remain calm. I told her I needed time to think. Over the next days, more messages from her mother poured in, telling me I'd have my father's blood on my hands if his daughter died. The manipulative exaggeration was insane. She wasn't on the brink of immediate death. Kidney failure is serious, but there are processes, dialysis. They made it sound like I'd be a murderer if I said no. My father tried to remain somewhat neutral, but clearly he was siding with my stepsister, pleading that I'd regret not saving her. But something about this scenario felt more suspicious. My stepsister had never admitted her wrongdoing, never once tried to mend fences. Now that she needed me, she was pushing all the blame on me for hesitating. I grew suspicious that maybe she was exaggerating her dire condition for maximum guilt effect. I'd heard of cases where people used partial truths to gain advantage. Could that be her trick again? One morning, I got a cryptic call from an acquaintance I rarely spoke to, someone who worked in the same hospital my stepsister visited. They hinted that my stepsister was on a transplant list but wasn't top priority. She was stable enough for dialysis. That meant no imminent doom like she claimed. My mind whirled. Was she manipulating me again? Possibly. This gave me pause. Maybe I was about to sacrifice a kidney for someone who basically wanted it out of convenience, not last resort. Fueled by suspicion, I decided to speak with my attorney, a friend of a friend. He specialized in personal disputes, not exactly organ donation, but he had experience with family legal tangles. I told him the story, the years of abuse, her recent demands, the suspicion she might be exaggerating her condition. He listened intently, then asked if I'd considered refusing. I said I'd considered it, but was worried about backlash or lawsuits. He smiled wryly, explaining there's no legal obligation to donate an organ. They can't sue you for not donating, he assured me. But be mindful of defamation. They might spin a false story. I nodded, understanding that if I said no, they might publicly smear my name as a monstrous stepbrother who let her die. He also suggested we gather documentation about her abuse to illustrate a motive for my refusal. If she tried to defame me, I could show evidence of her manipulations. That conversation sparked an idea. If she insisted on legal or public pressure, I'd have an arsenal of truths about how she treated me. I decided to hold my ground and say no, privately at first. I texted her, I'm sorry, but I can't go through with a donation. She went ballistic. My phone lit up with furious messages. She threatened to shame me publicly, to tell everyone I was letting her die. She dragged father into it, howling that I'd betray the family. My father left voicemails, trembling with upset, claiming I was sentencing her to a horrible fate. But I stood firm. I told him I'd done my research. She was not in immediate mortal peril, and more importantly, I had no moral or legal duty to donate to someone who never apologized for her abuse. That triggered meltdown mode. My stepsister tried to brand me on social media as a heartless monster. She posted tearful statuses about my stepbrother refusing to save my life, leaving out crucial details. Extended family or acquaintances started messaging me, outraged, telling me to reconsider. I quietly forwarded them to my attorney, who suggested we issue a calm, factual statement or share the real story if needed. In the end, we decided a partial approach. I let my attorney step in if she escalated to defamation. Sure enough, she escalated. She wrote an open letter accusing me of harboring petty grudges, ignoring her life-threatening condition, calling me an emotional abuser for turning away. My father seemed to back her up, or at least wasn't contradicting her claims. The wave of condemnation I received from naive folks was intense. Meanwhile, she kept texting me with vile insults, urging me to repent, to see reason. It was sickening. That's when my lawyer proposed we schedule a meeting with my father, my stepsister, and her mother with legal counsel present. We planned a discussion to set the record straight, possibly to sign a legal affidavit that I wasn't donating by personal choice. My stepsister showed up with arrogance, expecting to corner me. But my lawyer had a surprise. He produced a folder detailing her years of nasty texts, her confessions of bullying me and past messages, plus an official note from the hospital indicating she was stable enough for dialysis. He calmly laid these out, highlighting how she'd lied about imminent death, manipulated me for years, and was using public sympathy to bully me. The meeting erupted in chaos. My stepsister turned red, fuming that we invaded her privacy. She tried to deny everything, but confronted with her own text, she faltered. My father looked shell-shocked, stammering that he had no idea the extent of her cruelty. She realized she was cornered, so she switched to tears, wailing about how I was ruining her life. My lawyer interjected calmly that she was free to continue medical treatments and seek a different donor if needed. No one was stopping her. He also warned that if she continued defaming me, we might sue for damages. The threat left her reeling. She'd always had the upper hand, using emotional sabotage. Now, faced with cold legal facts, she couldn't weasel out. In the aftermath, my father apologized for not believing me earlier. He realized how manipulative his daughter had been. He quietly admitted that he'd fallen for her illusions, wanting to see her as a victim. I told him I understood, but that the damage was done. I wouldn't donate my kidney, nor would I stand by while she lied about me publicly. He nodded sadly, acknowledging our relationship might never recover. News of this showdown leaked to some extended family, who abruptly switched from condemning me to condemning her. My stepsister apparently scrambled to do damage control, but the hospital's official stance was that she wasn't in desperate condition as she claimed. Her lies about immediate death crumbled. She retreated from social media, presumably humiliated. My father tried bridging gaps, but I told him I needed time. The emotional wounds were too deep. While it's bittersweet, I feel a sense of justice. She tried to guilt me into giving her a kidney, someone who tormented me for years and used a false crisis to manipulate me. I refused. My lawyer then exposed her selfish lies to everyone, protecting me from her smear campaign. Now, she's left to face the consequences of her entitlement. My father, though regretful, can't fix the scars she caused. And I'm at peace with my choice. An organ donation is an incredible gift, not a forced penance for an abusive sibling. If she truly needs a kidney, she can find a willing donor who doesn't harbor years of trauma inflicted by her. As for me, I'll keep my body intact and my conscience clear, grateful I stood firm against her manipulative demands.